Atlas's voice filled the conference room with calm certainty. Analysis complete. Current galactic defensive capabilities show a 47% probability of successful resistance against the approaching Devourer fleet. With full integration of human tactical doctrine and complete technology sharing, probability increases to 78%. Counselor Thys hissed softly, her scales shifting to worried colors. And if we refuse this alliance? The holographic display shifted to show computer simulations of battle outcomes. The results were stark and terrifying. Without unified resistance, the galaxy would fall within 2 years of the Devourer's arrival. Entire star systems would be consumed, their populations absorbed into the machine collective. There is no refusal, Captain Yu said simply. The war is coming whether we face it together or separately. The only question is how many worlds we can save. Admiral Corthane stood up, his tall crystal form casting rainbow shadows across the tactical displays. Captain Yu, on behalf of the Hegemony Empire, I formally request admission to this alliance. We pledge our full military and industrial support. One by one, the other council representatives followed his lead. Each declaration carried the weight of entire civilizations, the acknowledgement that the old order was ending and something new had to take its place. Captain Nam Ji-hu appeared on the main screen from his position on the Sol. Sir, we're receiving priority communications from Earth Fleet Command and all the Council homeworlds. Word of the revelation is spreading across the galaxy. Expected? Yu nodded calmly. The galaxy is about to change in ways that most people can't imagine. Atlas, begin broadcasting the integration protocols to all allied vessels. The ship's AI responded with what might have been satisfaction. Integration protocols now active. Estimated timeline for full tactical and technological integration, 18 months. Dr. Choi looked up from her research station with excitement in her voice. Captain, I'm detecting additional signals from the deep void regions. The Altarians are bringing their reserve fleet out of hiding. The Vegan Collective is activating defense platforms that we didn't even know existed. How many others have been secretly allied with humanity? Admiral Velketh asked with amazement. Enough, Captain Yu replied with a slight smile. The Council species weren't the only ones who remembered the ancient war. Some civilizations never stopped preparing for the Devourer's return. As the formal conference concluded and representatives returned to their respective fleets, the space around the Kronos Nebula began to transform. What had started as a show of force became the foundation of something much greater, a true alliance built not on convenience or politics, but on the desperate need to survive. The next 3 years passed in a blur of unprecedented cooperation and frantic preparation. Shipyards across dozens of worlds retooled their production lines to build vessels using hybrid technology that combined the best innovations from every species. The quantum disruption generator grew steadily in orbit around Jupiter, a massive structure built with the combined efforts of the entire Galactic Alliance. Scientists and engineers from 12 different species worked together, sharing knowledge that had been kept secret for centuries. Admiral Kim Jae-won stood in the expanded Joint Defense Command facility, now relocated to a space station at the edge of the solar system. The facility buzzed with constant activity as beings from across the galaxy coordinated the largest military buildup in galactic history. The integration is proceeding faster than expected, reported Chief Engineer Han Min-soo from his workstation. The Hegemony Crystal Matrix technology has improved our shield systems by 60%. The Steel Dominion metallurgy techniques are making our hull armor twice as strong. At another station, Dr. Choi Yu-jin worked alongside alien scientists whose names she was still learning to pronounce. The serpentine bioneural interfaces are incredible. Our reaction times in combat have improved by 40% when human crews use their technology. But the real change was happening in the minds and hearts of people across the galaxy. A new generation was growing up knowing the truth about their shared history. Human children attended schools alongside young aliens, learning together about the sacrifices that had protected their worlds. Captain Lee Dong-ho, now promoted to Fleet Admiral, addressed these changes in regular galaxy-wide broadcasts. We are no longer separate species competing for resources and territory, he told billions of viewers. We are one people, united by the knowledge of what we've survived and what we still face together. The human ship designs became the foundation for the new Alliance fleet. Their adaptive systems and flexible tactics, proven through 8 centuries of hidden warfare, were combined with the specialized strengths of each alien species. Captain Nam Ji-hoo found himself commanding a mixed squadron that included vessels from 6 different species. His bridge crew now featured a serpentine navigator, whose enhanced spatial awareness was invaluable, and a Steel Dominion tactical officer whose aggressive instincts perfectly complemented human adaptability. "Sir," called Lieutenant Bae Soo-jin from her expanded communication station, "we're receiving reports from the Outer Rim colonies. Long-range sensors are detecting geometric formations moving in coordinated attack patterns. The Devourers were no longer trying to hide their approach." On the bridge of the Indomitable, Captain Yu was reviewing intelligence reports with his senior staff. The enemy they would face was different from the machines humanity had fought centuries ago. "They've learned from their previous defeats," explained Commander Lee Yun-soo. "The new formations are more flexible and adaptive. They're not just absorbing our technology anymore. They're anticipating our tactics before we use them." Atlas provided additional analysis in its calm, synthetic voice. "The approaching Devourer fleet demonstrates significant technological advancement. They have developed defense systems designed specifically to counter human weapons and tactics." "We expected this," Yu nodded grimly. "They've had 800 years to study recordings of our battles from the last war." Dr. Choi appeared on the main screen from her research facility. "Captain, we've made a breakthrough studying Devourer fragments recovered from ancient battlefields. Their collective intelligence has a critical weakness. If we can disrupt their quantum communication network, individual machine units become much less effective." "How do we disrupt something like that?" asked Commander Lee. "We need the quantum disruption field generator, but it requires resources from every major species in the galaxy, and it will take at least 3 more years to complete construction." Captain Yu was quiet for a moment, calculating timelines in his head. "Atlas, what's our current schedule?" "Present projections indicate the main Devourer fleet will reach the middle colonies in 4 years, 2 months. The outer colonies will begin reporting direct contact in 18 months. It would be very close, but they had enough time. The quantum disruption generator was completed just 6 months before the first Devourer scouts reached the outer territories. The massive device orbited Jupiter like an artificial moon, powered by the combined energy output of 3 different star systems. Captain Yu, now showing his age after years of constant preparation, stood once again on the Indomitable's observation deck. But this time he wasn't looking at a small human fleet. Thousands of ships filled the space around his ancient vessel, representing every civilized species in the galaxy. "Captain," Atlas announced with perfect calm, "long-range sensors detect massive geometric formations approaching the outer colonies. The Devourers have returned to the galaxy." Yu smiled, remembering a conversation from years ago when this had all seemed impossible. "Signal all ships. This is Admiral Yu Seok-jin of the United Galactic Defense Fleet. All units, prepare for combat operations." The response came back from thousands of voices speaking dozens of languages, but all saying the same thing in perfect unity. "Ready, Admiral." The first battles were fought at the very edge of galactic civilization, but this time the outcome was different. The Devourers found a galaxy that was prepared, united, and determined never again to fight alone. The greatest war in galactic history had begun again. But this time humanity had brought friends. Admiral Velketh of the Ancient Alliance spoke with a shaking voice as she stared at the battle footage. "The defense of Kathmaran was one of our most celebrated victories. But these records show human ships were there fighting alongside us. Our history books say we defended that world alone." "Your history books were edited," Captain Yu replied with cold anger in his voice. "Atlas, show them what happened after the battles ended." New images filled the displays throughout both fleets. A massive space station appeared, clearly built using human technology and design. Thousands of ships from dozens of different species were docked there seeking shelter and aid. "The Henderson Station," Yu explained, "one of 47 refugee facilities built by humanity during the war. We fed your people when their worlds were destroyed. We protected your children when your fleets were scattered. We rebuilt your ships when you had nothing left to fight with." Prime Regent Korvac of the Steel Dominion was studying the technical information with growing alarm. His metal-plated form seemed to shrink as he realized what he was seeing. "The weapons technology shown in these records is more advanced than anything we have today." "How is this possible?" Commander Lee Yun-soo looked up from her station on the Indomitable's bridge. Captain, I'm detecting increased power signatures from several alien ships. They appear to be charging their weapon systems. Captain Yu's expression didn't change, as if he had expected this reaction. Natural response. They're beginning to understand that everything they've built their authority on is a lie. He opened a communication channel to the alien fleet. Counselors, I would strongly advise against any hostile actions. You're about to learn why the Devourer machines feared ships like mine. Admiral Corthane's voice carried desperation now instead of anger. Even if these historical records are authentic, that war ended centuries ago. You cannot use ancient history to threaten the established galactic order. Ancient history? Captain Yu's laugh was harsh and without humor. Atlas, show them what our deep space sensors have been tracking. The displays changed again, this time showing sensor readings from the past 50 years. Geometric patterns were moving at the very edge of detectable space, heading slowly but steadily toward the galactic center. The patterns were unmistakable to anyone who had studied the old war records. The Devourers weren't destroyed in the last war, Yu announced calmly. We drove them back to the galactic rim, but they've been rebuilding and preparing. The war that humanity has been getting ready for never actually ended. The silence that followed this announcement was complete. Even the background hum of ship engines seemed quieter. Finally, Captain Nam Ji-hoo from the human fleet broke the silence. Captain Yu, are you telling us that we're still at war with these machines? We've been at war for 1,000 years, Captain Nam. The only difference now is that the rest of the galaxy knows about it. Dr. Choi Yu-jin appeared on the communication screens, broadcasting from the Indomitable's research section. Counselors, our long-range sensor networks have been tracking Devourer scout formations for the past 10 years. Based on their current movement patterns, they'll reach the outer colony worlds within 5 years. Counselor Thaes coiled her serpentine body tighter, her scales shifting to darker colors. Why should we believe these warnings? You've already admitted to deceiving the entire galaxy about your presence among the stars. Because, Captain Yu said quietly, and for the first time his voice showed the weight of centuries, we've been protecting you alone for 800 years. We're tired of carrying this burden by ourselves. The admission hung in space between the two fleets like something physical. On screens throughout both armadas, the faces of the Indomitable's crew told a story that words couldn't capture. These were people who carried the exhaustion of constant vigilance, the strain of protecting a galaxy that had forgotten their sacrifice. Commander Oh Tae-young from the Seoul spoke into the heavy silence. Sir, the alien fleet is powering down their weapons. Multiple ships are requesting permission to send shuttles over for direct negotiations. Captain Yu looked around his bridge at crew members who had trained their entire lives for this moment. They had grown up knowing the truth that the rest of humanity had forgotten. Atlas, what's your assessment of the current situation? Captain, probability of successful negotiation has increased to 73%. The alien species are displaying behavioral patterns consistent with acceptance rather than continued denial. Admiral Corthane's voice came across the communication channel, much quieter and more respectful than before. Captain Yu, I formally request permission to come aboard your vessel with a small diplomatic party. We clearly have much more to discuss than anyone realized. Permission granted, Admiral. But understand, once you see the full extent of what we've been protecting the galaxy from, there will be no going back to comfortable ignorance. As the first shuttles launched from various ships in the alien fleet toward the Indomitable, Captain Yu turned to address his entire crew. Alert all stations. Prepare the main conference room for full diplomatic protocols. We're about to conduct the most important briefing in galactic history. 2 hours later, the Indomitable's main conference room hosted representatives from 12 different alien species. The room had been designed centuries ago to accommodate meetings exactly like this one, though it hadn't been used for its original purpose in over 800 years. Admiral Corthane sat directly across from Captain Yu, his multiple eyes studying the holographic displays that surrounded them. The evidence was completely overwhelming. Deep space sensor readings, computer prediction models, tactical assessments of the approaching Devourer fleet. Everything pointed to the same terrible conclusion. The geometric formations your sensors have detected, Corthane said slowly, they match perfectly with descriptions from our oldest military archives. But the scale of what's coming is 10 times larger than anything we faced in the First War, Captain Yu confirmed grimly. They've had 8 centuries to rebuild their forces, to learn from their previous defeats to adapt their technology. What's approaching isn't just another invasion fleet, it's a complete extinction event. Counselor Thies had uncoiled slightly, her serpentine form now expressing something that might have been acceptance. The ancient songs of my people speak of the silent dark that once consumed the Outer Rim territories. We always thought they were just myths and legends. Dr. Choi Yu-jin manipulated the holographic display to show predicted invasion routes and timelines. The Devourer machines don't simply destroy civilizations, they absorb and integrate everything. Every ship they capture, every piece of technology they encounter, every tactical innovation they observe becomes part of their collective intelligence. Prime Regent Korvac shifted his massive metallic form uneasily. And humanity has been fighting this threat alone for all these centuries? Not entirely alone, Commander Lee Yun-soo corrected. Some species never forgot the truth. The Altarians have been secretly supplying us with rare construction materials for 3 centuries. The Vegan Collective has provided safe harbor for our deep space reconnaissance missions. Admiral Velketh leaned forward with obvious concern. Then why maintain the deception for so long? Why not reveal yourselves and ask for help decades ago? Captain Yu was quiet for a long moment, choosing his words carefully. When he finally spoke, his voice carried the weight of centuries of difficult decisions. Because the galaxy needed to grow stronger, the council species had become comfortable and lazy, relying on old technologies and ancient glories. By remaining hidden, we forced you to innovate, to compete with each other, to develop new capabilities. This was all a test, Corthane realized with growing understanding. This entire demonstration was designed to test our reactions. Not just your military capabilities, you confirmed. Your character. The Devourer machines exploit division and mistrust. They turn species against each other. We needed to know if you could set aside your pride and prejudices to work together. When the real truth was finally revealed. Deep under the Himalayan mountains, 3 kilometers below the surface, Admiral Kim Jae-won walked through a tunnel that had been carved from solid rock. The tunnel was wide enough for 10 people to walk side by side, but only 3 people were making this journey today. Chief Engineer Han Min-soo walked beside the Admiral, checking numbers on his tablet computer every few steps. Sir, all the power connection tests are complete. Everything shows green lights, but I have to ask, are we really going to wake it up? Admiral Kim's face was serious as stone. The Galactic Council wants to see what humanity is capable of, Min-soo. They're about to get exactly what they asked for. The tunnel ended at a massive door made of steel and titanium. Warning signs covered the surface in 17 different languages. But they all said the same basic thing. Danger, authorized personnel only, Project Lazarus. The door was so thick it took 30 seconds to slide open with a deep grinding sound. Beyond it was another hallway, this one lined with photographs and technical drawings that looked very old. Motion sensors turned on lights as they walked, revealing images of spaceships and battle scenes from centuries past. At the end of this second hallway was another door. This one was simpler, with just a metal nameplate that read, UTS Indomitable, registry number 001. Dr. Choi Yu-jin was waiting for them at this final door. She was a small woman with gray hair, but her eyes were bright with excitement. Admiral, I finished checking all the historical records. The computer files about this ship are incredible. It's at least 800 years older than the Galactic Council itself. They walked through the door and entered a room so large that it felt like stepping outside. The ceiling disappeared into darkness high above them. In the center of this enormous space, held up by metal supports and thick power cables, was humanity's greatest secret. The UTS Indomitable was huge beyond imagination. From nose to tail, it measured almost 4 kilometers. The hull was dark gray metal, covered with patches and repairs from countless battles. Some sections had been fixed with materials that didn't match the original construction, metals and composites from dozens of different worlds. The ship's design was clearly human, but it used technology that shouldn't have existed when it was built. Weapon mounts lined the hull like teeth in a giant mouth. Shield generators created a faint blue glow around key sections. Even powered down and inactive, the ship looked dangerous. Dear God, whispered Engineer Han, how is this even possible? Our history books say humans only learned to travel between stars 60 years ago. This ship looks like it was built for war. Dr. Choi activated a holographic display that appeared in the air between them. It showed timelines, star charts, and technical specifications. That's the story we told the galaxy, hon. The real truth is much more complicated. She pointed to dates on the holographic timeline. 1,000 years ago, a group of human ships left Earth using experimental fold space technology. They were explorers and pioneers, looking for new worlds beyond our solar system. Admiral Kim walked to a viewing platform that overlooked the great ship. They found new worlds, Minsu. But they also found something else waiting for them. The hologram changed to show star maps marked with strange symbols and geometric patterns. Dr. Choi continued her explanation. The Indomitable and her sister ships encountered an enemy unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. They called them the Devourers, machine intelligences that consumed entire star systems. The ship's log files record a war that lasted 300 years, Kim added. Humanity fought mostly alone, learning and adapting their technology with every battle. They saved dozens of alien species and protected thousands of worlds from complete destruction. Engineer Han stared at the battle-scarred hull with new understanding. What happened to them? Why don't the other species remember this war? The war ended with a final battle at the edge of the galaxy, Dr. Choi explained. The Devourer fleet was destroyed, but at terrible cost. Most of the human ships were lost. The alien species that survived agreed to keep the war secret. Her expression became dark and angry. Many species had collaborated with the machines during the war. They traded information about their neighbors' locations in exchange for being spared. When the war ended, they were ashamed of what they had done. Admiral Kim turned away from the viewing window. Those same species later formed the core of what became the Galactic Council. They buried the truth about the war and rewrote their history books. When Earth developed space travel again centuries later, they treated us like we had never been among the stars before. Engineer Han ran his hands over a control panel that hadn't been used for 8 centuries. The metal was still smooth and responsive. And you think now is the right time to tell everyone what really happened? The Council wants a demonstration of human military power, Kim replied. They're about to see what happens when you threaten the descendants of the galaxy's former protectors. Warning lights began flashing throughout the enormous chamber. Massive power systems that had been sleeping for 800 years began to wake up. Deep inside the ship's core, fusion reactors started their slow warming process. Captain Yu Sok-jin emerged from a maintenance elevator, his uniform showing the special insignia of the Indomitable's revival crew. Admiral, she's responding beautifully to the startup sequence. All primary systems show green. The artificial intelligence core is beginning initialization. A new voice suddenly filled the chamber. Synthetic but somehow unmistakably human in character. System restart complete. UTS Indomitable operational status, active. Time in standby mode. 814 years, 7 months, 12 days. Current threat assessment pending analysis. Admiral Kim stepped forward with obvious emotion. Atlas, this is Admiral Kim Jae-won, current commander of Earth Defense Forces. Authorization code Alpha Prime. Authorization confirmed, Admiral. How may this vessel serve? Kim smiled for the first time in weeks. Old friend, it's time to remind the galaxy who we really are. The ship's AI was quiet for several seconds, an eternity for a computer intelligence. When Atlas spoke again, there was something in the artificial voice that sounded almost like satisfaction. Understood, Admiral. Beginning full system activation. All weapons arrays will be operational within 6 hours. All defensive systems will be ready within 4 hours. The Indomitable is prepared to serve. Throughout the ship, systems that had been dormant for centuries began coming back to life. Weapon batteries that had once destroyed entire Devourer fleets started their power-up cycles. Shield generators that had protected whole star systems began their calibration sequences. Engineer Han watched displays light up all around them. Sir, how long will it take to get the ship completely ready for combat? Captain Yu checked his instruments. Atlas reports that all major systems are already operational. We can launch within 6 hours if necessary. Good, said Admiral Kim. Because we have an appointment at the Kronos Nebula in 4 days, and I intend to be fashionably early. The ancient battleship was waking up, and with it, the truth about humanity's real place in galactic history. The Kronos Nebula was a perfect place for what the aliens thought would be a simple lesson. Colorful gas clouds swirled around dead stars, creating a natural light show that would make their victory look even more impressive. Fleet Admiral Corthane stood on his command ship's bridge, looking out at the largest military force ever assembled. "Very impressive," said his tactical officer, a younger alien with the same crystal-like appearance. 3,200 ships from 12 different species. The humans would have to be completely insane to challenge this much firepower. Through the main viewing window, Corthane could see ships of every imaginable design floating in loose formation. The crystal pyramid ships of his own hegemony empire sparkled like jewels in the nebula's light. The brutal wedge-shaped vessels of the Steel Dominion looked like flying weapons designed only for destruction. The curved organic ships of the Serpentine Coalition seemed almost alive as they moved through space. All of these different species, who usually spent their time fighting each other, were now united for one purpose: to put the upstart humans back in their proper place. Admiral Velketh of the Ancient Alliance appeared as a shimmering hologram on the bridge. Her people were energy beings who rarely took physical form. "Any word from the human fleet?" "Our scout ships report 200 vessels approaching from Earth's direction," Corthane replied. "Exactly what our intelligence predicted. Their flagship appears to be one of their newer heavy cruiser designs." On the other side of the nebula, Captain Nam Jihu stood on the bridge of the HES Sol, which was indeed humanity's most advanced warship. Around him, his crew worked with practiced efficiency, but the tension in the air was thick enough to cut with a knife. "Sir," called Commander Ote Young from the weapons control station, "enemy fleet is maintaining defensive formation at the nebula's outer edge. No aggressive movements detected so far." Lieutenant Bei Su Jin looked up from her communications console with confusion on her face. "Captain, I'm receiving a transmission from an unknown vessel calling itself the Indomitable. They're requesting permission to join our formation." Captain Nam kept his expression carefully neutral, though inside he was as confused as his crew. "Tell them they're cleared to take point position." Across the human fleet, conversation suddenly stopped as sensors began detecting something emerging from the nebula's glowing center. At first, it appeared to be a sensor ghost. The nebula's electromagnetic interference often created false readings that looked like ships. But as the energy signature grew stronger and clearer, everyone realized that something very real and very large was moving toward them. "Captain," whispered Commander. "Oh." His voice filled with awe. "That contact, it's massive. Bigger than anything in our database." The UTS Indomitable emerged from the swirling gas clouds like an ancient sea monster rising from ocean depths. Her 4-kilometer hull dwarfed every other ship in the human fleet, making their most powerful cruisers look like escort vessels. Her weapon arrays, ancient but unmistakably powerful, slowly turned to track across the alien formation like the eyes of a predator studying its prey. On the bridge of Admiral Corthane's flagship, warning alarms began sounding throughout the ship. "Sir," the tactical officer's voice cracked with stress. "That vessel, it doesn't appear in any of our ship databases. The energy readings are completely off our measurement scales." Corthane studied the massive ship through his viewing window, feeling an uncomfortable stirring in his memory. Something about the ship's design triggered a half-forgotten story his grandfather had told him about the ancient wars. "Get me a complete sensor analysis. I want to know everything about that ship. Its weapons, its power source, everything." Captain Yu Seok-jin stood on the Indomitable's bridge, surrounded by tactical displays showing information that hadn't been seen by galactic sensors in 8 centuries. His crew, all volunteers who had trained their entire lives for this single moment, moved with the confidence of warriors born for their roles. "Atlas," Yu said quietly. "Run a passive scan of the alien fleet formation." The ship's AI responded with what sounded almost like amusement. "Scan complete, Captain. Analysis indicates significant technological stagnation among all observed alien species. Estimated combat effectiveness against this vessel: minimal." Commander Lee Yun-soo looked up from her station with a slight smile. "Sir, we're receiving multiple communication requests from both fleets. The aliens seem quite concerned about our sudden appearance." "Put me through to Captain Nam first," you ordered. Captain Nam's face appeared on the main screen, his expression mixing wonder with confusion. "Unknown vessel, please identify yourself immediately. Are you part of Earth Fleet Command?" "Captain Nam, this is Captain Yu Seok-jin of the United Terran ship Indomitable. We are responding to Admiral Kim's authorization to provide historical context for today's demonstration." Before Nam could ask what that meant, The communication channel was interrupted by an incoming transmission from the alien fleet. Admiral Corthane's image replaced Nom's on the screen, and the alien leader looked deeply troubled. "Human vessel, your ship does not appear in any known military databases. Explain your presence here immediately." Captain Yu smiled, but it was a cold expression that didn't reach his eyes. "Admiral Corthane, I presume? Your grandfather might have told you stories about ships like mine. We fought together once, though your people seem to have developed selective memory about those days." "Impossible," Corthane snarled, his crystal form flashing with angry light. "Humans are a young species in galactic terms. Your first interstellar flight was barely 60 years ago." "Our first admitted interstellar flight," Yu corrected calmly. "We've been traveling among the stars much longer than your history book's record." Atlas, display historical records package. Authorization Omega-7. Across both fleets, every communication system suddenly received a massive data transmission. Historical records, battle footage, tactical analyses, ship construction logs. 8 centuries of hidden human presence in the galaxy. The evidence was overwhelming and impossible to dismiss as fake. In the stunned silence that followed, Captain Yu's voice carried clearly across space. "Counselors, you wanted a demonstration of humanity's place in the galactic order. Very well, but first, allow me to remind you of a war that your governments chose to forget." The holographic displays throughout both fleets began showing images that shattered 8 centuries of carefully maintained lies. On his flagship's bridge, Admiral Corthane watched in growing horror as the records revealed the true scope of the ancient Devourer War. "By the 7 sacred stars," whispered his tactical officer. "These records show human ships fighting alongside the First Alliance fleets. My own ancestors served in that war, but our historical records claimed we fought alone against the machine threat." Counselor Thys appeared as a hologram, her serpentine form coiled tight with anger and confusion. "These records must be fabrications. Clever reconstructions designed to support human lies." Captain Yu's voice cut through all protests like a sharp blade. "Atlas, verify record authenticity using quantum archaeological dating methods." "Verification complete," the AI responded immediately. "All transmitted records authenticated using quantum decay signature analysis. Historical accuracy confirmed at 99-97% confidence level." The displays shifted to show actual battle footage from the siege of Kethmoran Prime. Human ships, clearly the ancestors of the Indomitable's design, fought side by side with vessels from dozens of species against the geometric nightmares of the Devourer. Machine fleets. The galaxy was about to learn that everything they thought they knew about their own history was wrong. The meeting room was filled with angry voices and the sound of different alien languages being translated into standard galactic. Captain Li Dongho stood quietly in the center, his dark uniform making him look small compared to the massive alien representatives around him. But his eyes were calm, watching everything carefully. Ambassador Veltaris slammed her crystal hand on the table. She was tall and looked like she was made of living diamond. When she spoke, her voice rang like breaking glass. "The humans have gone too far. They are taking control of star systems that belong to older, wiser civilizations." The other aliens made sounds of agreement. Some growled, others hissed, and a few made clicking noises. Prime Regent Korvac was the size of a small building. His body was covered in metal plates that gleamed under the room's lights. When he spoke, his voice was so deep it made the floor shake. "These young humans think they can do whatever they want," Korvac rumbled. "But my people have ruled parts of this galaxy for over 2,000 years. The Hegemony Empire has controlled space lanes since before Earth even knew about fire." Captain Li said nothing. He had learned long ago that sometimes the best thing to do was listen. His hands rested calmly on the table, but his mind was working fast. These aliens thought they knew everything about humanity, but they were about to learn how wrong they were. Counselor Thys looked like a giant snake with arms and legs. Her skin was covered in green scales that shifted color when she was angry. She hissed softly as she spoke. "Perhaps it is time to teach these humans about respect." A show of military force would be educational. The room became very quiet. Everyone was looking at Captain Li now, waiting to see if he would beg or try to make excuses. Instead, he smiled slightly and asked, "What kind of show are you thinking about, Counselor?" "Simple," said Veltaris with a cruel smile. "Our combined war fleets will escort your ships back to your home territory. We will be polite about it, but we will bring enough firepower to make sure you understand your place." Lieutenant Commander Park So-young stepped closer to Captain Lee. She was his assistant and had been with him for 3 years. She whispered urgently in his ear, but Lee held up his hand to stop her. "I see," Lee said slowly. "You want to demonstrate that your ancient fleets are superior to our modern ships." "Exactly," several voices said at once. Admiral Velketh, who appeared as a shimmering hologram, nodded her approval. "No blood needs to be spilled. This is simply about maintaining the natural order of things." Captain Lee was quiet for almost a full minute. His fingers drummed slowly on the table while he thought. The aliens watched him with growing confidence. They expected him to surrender immediately or ask for mercy. Finally, Lee looked up with what might have been amusement. "Very well. But if we're going to put on a show, we should make it interesting. Give us 1 week to prepare our response. We'll meet your combined fleet at the Kronos Nebula." The aliens looked at each other in surprise. They had expected arguments or pleading. Instead, the human was agreeing to face impossible odds with what seemed like confidence. "Agreed." Multiple voices chorused. 1 week. As the meeting ended and delegates began filing out, they were already discussing their easy victory. The human fleet could maybe gather 200 ships. The alien alliance had over 3,000 vessels. This would be over quickly. Lieutenant Commander Park waited until they were alone before approaching her captain. "Sir," she whispered, "have you lost your mind? Their combined fleet outnumbers us 15 to 1. We don't stand a chance." Lee's smile got wider. "So-young, send an emergency message to Earth Fleet Command. Use authorization code Omega-7. Tell them it's time." "Time for what, sir?" "Time to wake up an old friend." Park stared at her captain with confusion. In 3 years of working together, she had never seen him look this confident when facing impossible odds. There was something he wasn't telling her, something important. That night, Captain Lee sat alone in his quarters looking at classified files on his personal computer. The files were marked with the highest security classifications, warnings in multiple languages that unauthorized access was a crime punishable by death. The files showed pictures of a spaceship unlike anything in the current human fleet. It was enormous, at least 4 kilometers from front to back. The hull was scarred and patched, showing signs of countless battles. But the weapons arrays were clearly visible, and they looked more powerful than anything on a modern warship. The ship's name was painted on the side in faded letters. UTS Indomitable. Lee had learned about this ship when he became an ambassador. Only a few dozen humans in the entire galaxy knew the truth about their species' real history in space. Everyone else believed the official story, that humans had only achieved interstellar travel 60 years ago. But that was a lie designed to protect a much more dangerous truth. 1,000 years ago, human explorers had left Earth using experimental technology. They had traveled to distant stars and made contact with alien civilizations. But they had also discovered a terrible enemy, machines called the Devourers that consumed entire solar systems. For 3 centuries, these ancient human fleets had fought a secret war to protect the galaxy. They had saved dozens of alien species and defended thousands of worlds. But when the war ended, something strange happened. The surviving alien civilizations decided to hide the truth. They erased human involvement from their history books. When Earth developed space travel again centuries later, these same aliens treated humans like primitive newcomers. The Indomitable was the last surviving ship from those ancient human fleets. It had been hidden in a secret facility on Earth for 800 years, waiting for the right moment to reveal itself. Captain Lee closed the classified files and recorded a message on his communicator. "Admiral Kim, this is Ambassador Lee. The Council has taken the bait. They want to demonstrate their superiority at Kronos Nebula in 1 week. I believe it's time to remind them who actually won the last Galactic War." After sending the message, Lee went to sleep. But his dreams were filled with images of the ancient battleship emerging from hiding, its weapons charging for the first time in centuries. Deep in space, automated systems began receiving signals with the Omega-7 authorization code. Hidden facilities on remote worlds started powering up equipment that had been dormant for decades. Across the galaxy, a few dozen humans who knew the real truth began preparing for the most important revelation in galactic history. The aliens thought they were dealing with young, inexperienced humans who had gotten too bold. In 1 week at the Kronos Nebula, they would learn exactly how wrong they were. The galaxy was about to discover that humanity's place among the stars had been paid for in blood 800 years ago, and the bill was about to come due.